Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. And welcome to our webinar, Virtual Queuing. My name is Charles Green. I'm part of the marketing team here at Globant, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's session. We are going to explore exactly what is virtual queuing and how it can help very quickly and efficiently make a dramatic improvement in the experience that you offer to your customers. In today's session, we will have a short presentation to provide details and an overview of virtual queuing and its benefits. Then we're going to jump into a fireside chat to explore in a bit more detail some of the common questions that people have about the solution. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions whilst listening, please let us know via the Q&A box in the Zoom, and we'll be delighted to take those questions as they come in. Now, as this webinar is all about improving the waiting experience, I don't want to delay any further and instead jump right into the session. So I'm delighted to welcome Mike Twersky, the co-founder and CFO at Wireline, and Tim Hurls, partner at Globant's UK offices. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
And Mike, do you want to give perhaps a brief introduction?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me. Mike Twersky, co-founder and CFO of Wireline, as you've heard. We're headquartered in New York. We have operations really across the globe with offices in the US, Latin America, and Europe. We've done this dance many times, so we are excited to talk about this very important subject, which I think is ever more important in the challenging times that we find ourselves in, and also very fortunate and lucky to have such a great corporate partnership with Globant. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And with that, I'll pass it over to Tim.
Thanks, Mike. My name's Tim Hurls. I'm a partner in Globant in the UK, usually based in London. I work across a number of different sectors, including public sector, financial services, video games and retail, always looking for good solutions to the many problems that companies and organizations are facing, well, particularly this year. And really excited to talk to Mike about the great stuff that Wireline have been doing in helping solve this particular problem.
Fantastic. So with that, let me jump into this short presentation just to give anecdotal commentary on what we're doing here and why we're excited about it and what we want to portray. So what is virtual queuing? What are we talking about here? I think for that, it makes sense to talk about what it used to mean. So up until a few years ago, virtual queuing meant you show up at a DMV or a place like that without any knowledge of the congestion or wait times on site, enter a stuffy room filled with a lot of people, walk up to a kiosk that looks like it's this rigid piece of machinery straight out of the 80s or 90s, put your name into the system, and then wait in a stuffy room in a folding chair until someone calls you or your name appears on a screen. We realized there had to be a much better way. And so we upended that industry by producing a cloud-based, hyper-automation-driven solution that folks can use from their homes, their cars, from anywhere. They would know precisely what the wait time is at their destination of choice before they got there. So similar to the way you use things like Google Maps or Waze quite ubiquitously to help you navigate between 2 points, right? How long is it going to take me to get from point A to point B? What is the best way to go and how do I outsmart traffic? This is the comparable solution that gives you pristine visibility into point B or into your destination of choice before you get there, and a way to game it by seeing the live congestion levels, wait times, and the ability to enter the queue from your phone or from your computer, know precisely when you're going to be seen, how many people are in front of you, and you get those dynamic updates so you don't have to waste any time in line, and eliminates that entire pain point. And conversely, for the companies and governments that we work with, it provides a very powerful and compelling administrative portal and live monitoring dashboard solution that allows them to methodically control on-site foot traffic and enable their constituency base to wait from the safety and comfort of their home or cars, as I mentioned, all the while reaping nice benefits from an ROI perspective as far as increased willingness to spend, greater retention rates, more optimal efficiency of staff allocation against predictably higher and lower periods of congestion by hour and by day and by branch, really. So all in all, direct impact to the bottom line in a significantly positive way above and beyond the enhancements to the customer's experience. We built this, as I mentioned, with hyper automation. So it is not incumbent on manual inputs from the staff to guess what the wait times are and input that into the system does that for you. And like any other machine learning driven algorithmic system, it gets smarter and smarter with each incremental data input. The nice thing about what we built here is also we have very robust and flexible API connections. So we realized it doesn't make sense to force feed our client and corporate partners with a solution that they have to force people to necessarily download something new or bring in a new piece of rigid machinery, excuse me. Instead, we built something that is easily embedded within the confines of your existing digital ecosystem on the administrative side, and can also equally be embedded on the front-facing side inside your existing third-party apps and websites as well. So it presents a frictionless experience throughout. Clearly what we solve for, these are somewhat obvious, but important points to drive home. These old waiting systems, the archaic industry of just queuing in serpentine or waiting room queues does paint a negative perception of the company, which negatively impacts retention rates and the willingness to spend. There has always been an inefficient way of optimizing the resource allocation pursuant to when the congestion peaks will come, because there wasn't that knowledge before from the consumer behavioral standpoint. And also, we live in interesting times where there's clearly a greater risk of passing of communicable diseases. I wish that wasn't the case, but we are where we are. And this solution certainly has been amplified from something that solves a pain point to a potentially life-saving solution as well. Conversely, for the customers, they don't want to wait in long lines during the pandemic. It generates a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety with less incentive to spend and return. And they don't like committing to lines without knowing what the wait time is before they get there. What we've done to date, we've been able to quantify that we've saved users a collective amount of time that is equivalent to almost 40 years of a person's life. We have over 600,000 users in our ecosystem that use the solution with relative frequency. We currently service over 1,000 venues, and we've successfully serviced over 25 million customers to date across a variety of industry verticals, including servicing up to 5,000 people per minute at peak loads. So certainly from a volume standpoint, we've been battle tested, and we work with some Fortune 500 companies as well as premier government agencies. As I mentioned, how we solve it, you can see some of the pictures here on the right, so it gives you a sense of how we do this. We offer app functionality as well as web-based functionality, including mobile web responsiveness, where you're able to see at any given moment, bifurcated by service within each destination, the live wait time, how many people are in front of you, and the ability per geofencing restrictions to check in on site by either scanning a QR code or by pressing a button. So you don't have to interact with anyone. This is a complete touchless solution in every which way, shape, or form. In addition to that, I'll go through some of the product modules that we have, but we also offer things like fixed appointment scheduling in a dynamic way. So in the old days, you show up to your doctor's appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning, only to realize you have to wait another 45 minutes once you get there. Here with our solution and the hyper automation, machine learning algorithms, it tells you in advance from your home, hey, we know your appointment's coming up at 10. The doctor is running 45 minutes behind. You can check in remotely, submit pieces of information to be processed automatically beforehand. So you don't have to waste time doing it while you're there, and the staff can better prepare for your visit, but only show up at 10:45 or else you're just going to be waiting. So this is a complementary and synergistic component that really is core to the overarching digitalization strategy of our corporate and governmental partners. And we attack any queuing related bottlenecks, not just a one-trick pony. Our product suite, we've really productized all of these core functionalities, detailed down to number of different individual parts that can work siloed or also can operate as a fully integrated solution working in tandem. We have the virtual line component, which allows you, as I said, to see the live wait times for specific services before you get there, hop into the queue. This can be integrated with your CRM, ERPs, or POS systems. You have the appointment suite where you're doing fixed appointments before. You can configure the amount of people per timed window of every 10 or 15 minutes. So there's a lot of flexibility and customizations that you can toggle on and off. We have a capacity management solution that allows you to make sure you never are in violation of having more than the maximum number of people inside a store or venue at any given moment. And you can broadcast that in a methodical way so you don't have congestion coming on site on the sidewalk as well. We also can sync with POS systems, as I mentioned, so you can schedule payments, mobile pickups, home deliveries, and even returns. And then we also have a very powerful statistical suite. and not only in the form of a live monitoring dashboard, but also in the form of on-demand reports that can be downloaded at any given time, where you can see behavioral trends from customer trends with respect to willingness to wait, frequency of reentry, churn rates, the efficiency of personnel managing the queues, servicing times. So you can see not only in real time, but on an ongoing basis, how you've evolved from a quantitative way to really reap those ROI benefits that you can report up the chain methodically. From a value proposition standpoint, we've seen this time and time again. We have tens, almost 100 successful use cases across a variety of industries that we've done. So these are all things that we've actually seen tangibly: greater efficiency from a reduced cost standpoint, a better seamless enforcement of safe social distancing guidelines for the companies, much better and flexible reporting and on-demand analytics that can be downloaded at a multitude of different formats, better increased staff satisfaction, enhanced safety compliance for them, and full control over the customer journey at all times, both digitally and on site. Conversely, for the customer, less waiting, obviously, full control of their time, so they can hop into the queue, let the software wait on their behalf while they go get a coffee, drop their kid off at school, go about their day, so they're not waiting at all and are entirely productive throughout the entire day. An improved customer service, significantly so, and that visibility and predictability into the wait times from their home or car. From a customer journey standpoint, this is just meant to show the art of the possible, but these are actual flows from our app that our customers and their end users use. So it can be bifurcated by individual industry. And depending on the industry, you can actually search for a specific location, or you can have the app recommend to you places based on the industry that you're looking for and the GPS location that you find yourself in. You can see the live congestion not only at that given time, but predictably into the future by day and hour, as well as historically in the past. Once you select that venue, you're able to see the services that have been enabled for the virtual queuing or smart appointment scheduling. And then you're able to see the live waiting time for that specific service, how many people are in the queue right now, and the ability to enter into the queue and let the software wait for you. Once you're there, we've geo-fenced it, so you can just click a button that says you've arrived, or you can scan a QR code on the outside plexiglass of the venue. You're given, by the way, SMS notifications and in-app push notifications as your spot nears the front of the queue. And if there are any changes, you're given those updates as well. You have the ability to push yourself back or cancel, obviously. And then when you show up, you're given directions on exactly where to go, so you're serviced right away without having to wait. I mentioned the integrations. That's a really important point. We've successfully integrated with a variety of systems before, anything ranging from CRMs, third-party apps, third-party websites through deep links and iframes, BI analytics, ERP solutions, and EMR solutions for the healthcare sector. We've done this time and time again. Most of these integrations take just 1 to 2 developmental sprints and present a very powerful solution from an analytical standpoint that our clients just didn't have access to before. This is just emblematic of what we can show from a statistics standpoint. This is just a healthcare solution example, but one can envision the different ways it can be used for all the other industries which we operate in. From a benefits and results standpoint, we've seen significant impacts to the workflow insights and optimization, right? So the ability to forecast congestion peaks and troughs means that you can better allocate resources against that and better prepare for those visits. From a self-service optimization standpoint, the ability for your end users and your customers to do this on their own and be fully in control of the customer journey throughout the entire process is bar none something that they just haven't had access to before, and it's a game changer. We've seen penetration rates and the frequency of usage go up tremendously once they're given access to this sort of functionality where they never had the opportunity to solve this pain point before. Data management and analytics, I just mentioned on the previous slide, very powerful stuff, both in the form of a live monitoring dashboard and those on-demand reports, and also from a security standpoint. We take security exceptionally seriously. We work very closely with AWS to ensure we're constant compliance with GDPR, HIPAA, not violating PII. But for your agents to better prepare for the oncoming customers before they arrive, know what they're coming for, cross-reference existing notes and databases based on what they came for last time is really, really powerful stuff. Some ROI stats that we've been able to aggregate, which are important to mention. we've been able to compile an 82% reduction in on-site wait times using this solution, 37% reduction in the number of personnel needed to manage those long queues, 52% increase in faster transactional servicing times, because again, they're better able to prepare for the visit, and a lot of the former manual processes are now fully automated. 74% reduction in customer no-shows, because they have much better preconceived notions about the experience they're going to receive before they get there. And they have that visibility into how long they're going to wait and when they're going to be serviced without fearing the worst and then showing up and saying, well, I'm not going to do this, I'll try another day. 65% reduction in hardware costs. Again, we totally upend the old technology stack. There is no need with our solution to have any sort of that rigid hardware. We do offer integrations into those kiosks, as well as display monitors, but it's completely optional. So our clients save a lot of money there. 70% reportable improvement in customer service that we've been able to aggregate via surveys, and a 77% reportable improvement in employee morale, again, via surveys, which is also equally important because I would say motivated employees certainly are more inclined to service their end customers in the best and fastest way. Those are the main points that I wanted to portray, but there's a lot more to come in the Q&A and the fireside chat. So let me pause there. There are some contact listings on the bottom here, including a unique URL, which I'll just leave here for a moment so folks can jot that down. But rest assured, we'll also make this available, and there'll be a recording of this as well in case you don't have a pen and pencil. But thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it back to Charles.
Well, maybe I'll pick it up there, Mike. That's a fantastic presentation, and it's really impressive. And it just strikes me that great innovation makes something seem really obvious. And I think, well, why didn't I think of that? It seems like a fantastic solution. But I'd like to ask a few questions initially around the customer view, the customer experience, and how that works. So, as a customer, if I was to turn up somewhere that was utilizing this service, and I hadn't had any experience of it before, I wasn't aware that I had to have it on my device or anything, what would happen? How would I find out? How would I discover the service in order to start to use it?
Yep. So the nice thing here is we have these API integrations that embed this functionality inside the existing website and app ecosystem of our clients. So you can have links to this functionality inside the websites that the end user base is already using. They also clearly have the best direct marketing channels in the form of emails to let folks know about the availability of this functionality. And also what we do is we realize that, yeah, there are going to be folks that don't necessarily go on the website and they're not knowledgeable about this the first time they go. So we try to enable this functionality for all forms of entrance into the queue. So we also have touchless QR code queuing as well, where you have, as I mentioned, a pasted QR code on the outside of the venue that folks are easily able to just scan their phone against. There's also a unique URL where they're able to go and hop into the queue or schedule an appointment, so that the next time they come, they realize, okay, well, this is great, but the next time I'm going to use the app or the website. So we've seen penetration rates go up very nicely once they've used it the first time, because this is a pain point that they're solving, which they never were able to solve before.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, for example, I'd turn up and I could scan a QR code and I'd be asked to download the app.
You don't even have to download. Yeah, I mean, you can, but the nice thing here is we find the path of least resistance in the most frictionless way. So by scanning the QR code, you're sent directly to a web-enabled, just a website, right? It's a web view on the mobile device. You don't have to fill in any long form. You don't have to download a new app. So it's very, very frictionless, very user-friendly, and literally takes just 2 seconds.
Slick and easy. So just staying on the customer perspective, do you have any insights, data, anecdotes on how the customer experience itself has performed? What the feedback's been, what the sentiment has been from the people who've used this service? Yeah,
so I mentioned some ROI stats on some of the previous slides. In addition to that, we've been able to see penetration rates skyrocket once folks started to use it. So the frequency of return and the retention rates of our end users is extraordinarily high. From a corporate and governmental client standpoint, we have 0 customer churn, so we haven't lost a customer. So we're providing a very compelling solution that people use very effectively and with frequency. And I would say in addition to that, we're always optimizing the solution that we provide. So one of the things that we pride ourselves in through our customer success team is we work very, very closely with both our clients and their end users to make sure that we're constantly perfecting the solution for them. So we have all these bells and whistles already, but as environments change, as industries evolve, and certainly in today's day and age, we've seen that precipitously so, we're constantly at the forefront of innovation, not in a reactive way, but in a proactive way, based on being so close to our clients and their end users.
So would that be on a client by client basis, or is that something you roll out across the service for all clients?
We roll out across the service for all clients based on individual feedback. The nice thing about this model is since we've built it in the cloud, we don't have to recreate the wheel each time. We're not delivering individual pieces of machinery and then getting slowed down by implementing it at branch by branch. We enable this functionality and the improvements to everybody through updates, and it is available globally. And we can scale with our customers as quickly as they want to scale. Once we do the integrations, which again normally takes just one developmental sprint, we can light up this functionality and flip the switch for as many offices or services as the client wants in the timeline that they want.
That's fantastic. So could you just touch on, I mean, I'm assuming this is sector agnostic, is that right? Could you touch on some of the sectors you've deployed this in and describe how that's been working?
Yeah, you're right. This is sector agnostic. The pain point of waiting in line is pervasive in every industry. Clearly, one can conjure up, specific cases where the pain point is really meaningful for them, more so than perhaps other industries. But we've done work across the spectrum of industry verticals globally. So we've done a tremendous amount of work in the governmental space, ranging from DMVs to public sector healthcare, municipal courthouses, permitting offices, things like that. We've also done a lot of work in the private sector for hospitals as it relates to ERs, outpatient clinics, diagnostic centers, pharmacies, private practitioners. We've done a tremendous amount of work with retail, including some Fortune 500 accounts globally. We work a fair amount with banks. We work with some of the largest banks, for example, in Latin America. So we solve a meaningful pain point for their customers as well. And of course, we also have, restaurants, hair salons, nail salons, seaports. We've now been getting use from an operational standpoint for internal employee functions, which is something we didn't necessarily envision at first, but makes a ton of sense. So this can be used in a multitude of different ways, which is why it's such a powerful solution. And to the extent that we need to tweak something very quickly, again, it takes just a matter of days or 1 or 2 weeks, and off they go.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I was thinking when you were saying that, I think voting queues during elections might be something we could look at some point in the future.
Yeah, we missed that one, but certainly as it turns out, you are very much correct, and I think there's a lot we can help with there.
There's an opportunity there, isn't there? Yeah,
certainly.
Okay, so moving away from the customer and how that experience works, it also struck me that this has been an exceptional year, and I can see how this solution would be incredibly appealing when there is a pandemic and people need to keep their distance and need to stay at home as much as possible and stay away from each other. So I can imagine there's been a lot of interest throughout this year. But beyond that, how do you see this? How is this going to progress? How do you see this playing out in 2021 when we hope that a vaccine is on the horizon and people will be getting back to normal?
Yeah, so clearly COVID has amplified this pain point, right? The idea that this can be used to methodically control on-site foot traffic in a safe and secure way is in many cases paramount. Having said that, we were already solving a meaningful pain point that directly led to attributable positive ROIs in the form of increased revenue and decreased costs, all correlated to better customer service and faster servicing. So if we get in the door because all of a sudden some people are paying attention because of COVID, that's fine, but we're there to stay. This is an incredibly sticky product. Once folks start to use it, they realize how important it is to their ecosystem, and we continue to evolve synergistically as part of their overarching digitalization strategy, as I mentioned. So we're there for the long haul. You've seen the CEO of Microsoft come out and say he's seeing 10 years of innovation being condensed into 2 months, right? So consumer behaviors are changing for the long haul. The demand and need for instant gratification is now pervasive in every facet of our lives, and we need that now. So this pain point certainly is here to stay, and we are solving it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. Like many things during this year, there's been a massive acceleration in adoption of new technology to solve problems, and queuing is a problem that has been around a long time, right? I mean, I come from a country that prides itself on organized queuing, but even we hate it, and would love to be without it. So that completely makes sense. So just in practical terms, if someone was to come to you and take you up on your product and service, how quickly could it be deployed?
Great question. So that's also one of the nice things about building it in the cloud with great open API extensions. So we don't need a significant lead time. We had some of the largest companies in the world come to us, and we're able to deploy our solution in under a week. So I would say it can be same day. We actually have a version for small to medium-sized businesses that is available on our website, and even for our enterprise version, which is more meaty, obviously, that has more advanced functionality, we can deploy in just a matter of days, sometimes within 24 hours, at most, just 1 or 2 developmental sprints, depending on any complex integrations they want. But that's really the main takeaway here. We're light, we're heavily secure, and we're able to move very fast and flexibly.
Can you dig a little bit into that? Well, I mean, what would it take within a week or 2 weeks, which seems like a remarkably short period of time? But you mentioned development sprints. What would that consist of, and what would need to be deployed from a corporate perspective to make it happen?
Sure. So our operations team and our customer success team works very closely with the decision makers on our client side, whether that's the office of the CIO, the CTO, what have you, to really scope out any ancillary requirements that are not already in the system. In most cases, I should say, we have everything out of the box. So we've already built anything that they could ask for, to the extent that they are requesting nuanced functionality that really would perfect it for the way they're procedurally set up and the way they service their customers. We scope that out. We work very closely with our large development team, and we give estimates. And because, again, we've built it so flexibly, just toggling on and off functionality, the ability to change things in a very easy and seamless way, more often than not, we can do that inside of 2 weeks. So we give them an estimation on how long it's going to take. We give them updates frequently along the way. We obviously do demos of that functionality as it gets closer. We enable them to do final user acceptance testing. We do some dry runs, and off they go. And of course, we're there every step of the way. We provide customer service effectively 24/7. So the extent that they need something more, what they realize 2 months down the road, oh, now I realize that it would be really great if I can use this. Again, we can just go back in just a matter of days or weeks, perhaps, and add all that stuff too. So it really perfects it for them in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like the demands on the client organization are relatively light. I mean, who would you need to engage with, and to what extent? What sort of commitment would need to be in place for that kind of rapid deployment to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly easy. We want to make sure we're talking to the right folks at the client, right? So that's one thing that's important for folks that are not the project leaders. We don't want them guessing what they think they would want. We want to make sure that we corral the right folks and do a deep dive. And a lot of that is interactive. We would share with them, based on our experience, what we've seen with other clients, what works, what doesn't, compare that to the pain points they're looking to solve specifically, talk about the implications of each customization or things we would need to work on. And then we would lay that out for them in a very meticulous way, right? In project management or documentation standpoint, all the things we're going to do, we obviously go and ask for their final approval before we do it. But this is all very well thought out and meticulous. It's not just, okay, it would be nice to have this. Yeah, we'll we'll let you know when we can do it, and we'll see how it goes. This is quite the opposite.
Yeah, you've done it a few times now. I guess you've refined it. You
it's
got it down.
It's not our first rodeo. Yeah.
Yeah. So sort of related to that, and I can't remember if you covered this in your presentation. I'm sorry, I don't think you did. But hardware. Is there any hardware that needs to be deployed? And if so, what is it, and what does it look like? What's required there?
Yeah, the great thing is no. There's no hardware
okay.
required at all.
Short answer.
This is completely SaaS cloud-based. We do have integration endpoints that clients can use if they wanted to, their existing kiosks, or if they wanted to buy a kiosk, we do have preferred suppliers already connected and integrated with those kiosks, because they're effectively just pulling up a website. It's an encrypted login on an internet connected device. Same thing goes for display monitors on site that can easily just direct people through audio and visual pings with video marketing and instructions for the people already on site where they should go. We have those integrations built out as well. So any TV monitor that they already have, and any of the respectively cheap ones that they would want to buy, we already have that built out. So it's just active internet connection is all that they need, and they'd be able to leverage all this functionality that we already built.
That's fantastic. And you touched on security earlier, but could you give us a little more detail about how you handle security?
Yeah, this is a key component to this, right? We take this exceptionally seriously. That's why we work with the best. So our cloud host provider, AWS, with access to AWS GovCloud, we work constantly with their privacy teams with respect to, as I mentioned, depending on the industry, HIPAA, GDPR, making sure that we're not in violation of PII from any which way, shape, or form. And that varies by geography as well. So we're digging into the privacy laws in each individual jurisdiction based on geography. And we do the same for our database provider, MongoDB Atlas. It's exactly the same. So everything is we sharpen our pencils around that and cross our T's and dot our I's in a serious way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just to touch on another subject, scalability. It sounds like the way this is set up, it's cloud-based, that you can deploy small and then grow relatively easily and quickly. Is that the case?
Yeah, we have many clients that want to start off with a small scale POC where they'll focus on one branch or service, and they'll do that for a month or two. And then based on mutually agreeable success metrics or certain hurdle rates that they're looking to achieve, quantifiable or qualitatively, they can then decide to blow that out afterwards and start to scale it throughout their entire network. We have other clients that want 100% penetration from day one, so they open it up literally to every one of their stores. We can do that. And then in most cases, I'd say there's a ramp up timeline where you would start with, let's say, 5 branches or services in month 1, 20 or 30 a month, and obviously depending on the client and how many branches or services that they have. But it goes to show that we can work with any sort of requirement from a timeline standpoint that the client needs. Some of them have come to us in emergency mode saying, we need this now, we need this everywhere. 2 weeks later or less than that, it is everywhere. And some of them say, okay, we want to try this here, see how it goes. Based on that, maybe we tweak it. We can do that too. So we've done everything under the sun.
And what sort of scale are we talking about here when you think about your largest rollouts?
Yeah, so as I mentioned towards the beginning of the presentation, we've successfully serviced over 20 million people to date. And that goes across a variety of industries. But in some of those clients, it's been many millions of people individually for their services alone. At our peak loads, we've successfully serviced over 5,000 people per minute. So I do think that we've been battle tested in that sense. We work very closely with the AWS architecture and scalability team there to make sure that we can handle these peak loads, and we're very proud of that.
Yeah, there's a robustness to it that is reassuring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is global, right? You've been operating in a number of different countries around the world.
It is global. We have use cases all over Latin America, the US. We do a fair amount of work in Europe. We're not in Asia yet, although it is on our roadmap, and certainly there's a lot of use cases to help out with there as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've got this question in my mind that relates to the functioning of the service at its core, I guess. I'm just intrigued as to how you do the calculation on wait times. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's, as I mentioned, hyper automation driven. So it's constantly looking at the live servicing times and live wait times bifurcated by individual service at each given moment. It extrapolates that value by the amount of people in the queue at that given time, both folks who have entered via the app, via the website, via QR codes on site, or maybe a kiosk or a tablet on site as well from a receptionist. But it's also looking at what the servicing times were and the wait times were for that specific service earlier the same day, the previous day, same time of the day, and the previous week, same day of the week, same time. So it's constantly comparing apples to apples, and like any other machine learning algorithm, gets smarter and smarter with each incremental data input, to the point where it becomes highly accurate in a short period of time. We don't want people gaming it to within a minute or 30 seconds. So we do advise folks in the form of those SMS and in-app notifications, show up 5 minutes before or a couple minutes before your slot. In that way, they still have that comfort and stress-free experience of knowing that they're going to be seen next, or the next guy after, after that. And they don't have to worry about standing in a line, worrying about when they're going to be called. And that has led to much, much greater retention of those customers and an increased willingness to spend, as we've seen.
Yeah, it can be such a stressful experience, not knowing where you are in the queue, how long you need to commit for.
Yeah, I mean, we at the Founders, we solved it out of personal necessity. So that pain point is near and dear to us, and we're happy we built it just so that we can use it ourselves. But why not open that up to everybody else to benefit from it as well?
So it was actually a desire to solve a personal issue that drove the formation of this.
Yeah, really out of a healthcare play initially, waiting over 2 hours to be seen by a pediatrician. But as we further got into it, we just realized that the industry as a whole was severely antiquated, little to no innovation in the last 15 to 20 years for a variety of reasons. But yeah, we saw a huge opportunity to solve a meaningful pain point that contributes to massive improvements from a social impact perspective to the way people interact with their companies that they're going to visit, as well as just going about their daily routine and being productive all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a final question before I just pause and see if there are any others coming in. You're on a journey yourself here, like as an organization, as a service. What does the future hold in terms of what you're developing, what you're thinking of next? In this territory.
Yeah, we have great. I mean, we're constantly evolving and very ambitious in our product roadmap. So there's certainly a couple of things on the horizon that we anticipate opening up within the next 12 months. I want to be careful what I say. I don't want to get in trouble.
I know. I realize
privacy standpoint what's on the horizon, but I will say that for example, we see that there are major issues from not only physical queuing but also from telephonic queuing, right?
Yeah,
waiting a long time to speak to representatives because you're on hold music and you don't know when they're going to see you. So we've already solved that. We have a call center module that is available for customers, but like anything else, we're constantly learning about how to improve there too. So there's some optimizations. Just to give you a sense of the things that we're working on and optimizing, this will be fully available and perfected for our clients to make use of. So they not only combat the bottlenecks of physical queuing, but also telephonic queuing as well.
Oh man, that is such a great thing to hear, just from a personal perspective. My in phone interactions with various utilities and services are so fraught and frustrating. It's ripe for sorting out. So that's really good to hear. Thanks, Mike. Perhaps I'll just pause a moment and just ask Charles if we have any questions from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to you both. It's been a fascinating discussion. So we have a couple of questions which came in whilst you were talking. The first one relates to the healthcare sector. And it is, many times if you imagine, for example, a emergency care situation, and you may have situations where you need different things, right? You need, one moment an X-ray, for example, a few minutes later you need something else. So you have these different waiting lines. Can the system contemplate all these different friction points and these different lines?
Yeah, great question. So the answer is yes. We built it in such a way where the solution tackles the pain points for each individual service or line. At the same time, it works in tandem, aggregating all of the available data points from the various service lines that are being serviced at the same venue or organization. And we have different responsibility rights or user rights based on that. So we have folks that just manage individual service lines, but then we have folks more on the administrative side that are able to see the flow of all the different lines working in tandem together. So folks you can create consequential processes, not to get too much into the weeds, but happy to if it makes sense. Consequential processes where the system would automatically detect folks entering one part of the process. In this case, they may need an X-ray. As soon as they are checked out successfully by the system on an automated basis, it would direct them back to the other department as part of the unique processes of that venue. So it's not incumbent on staff to exchange information with each other, call them and say, hey, we just finished downstairs on 3 with the X-ray. Can you go back into the system, refresh it, put this individual's name? The system would automatically account for that in the chronological timeline for the rules and the schematics that we've already set forth. And that can be aggregated both at the unique venue level and also cross venues at the organization level. So if they're literally going across the street or to a different department that's a couple blocks away, the same answer applies. So we've thought of that, and we've had a number of successful use cases within the healthcare sector that have just done this very thing.
Excellent, thank you. Just a reminder to everyone on the call today, if you do have questions, please keep them coming in, ask them, and we'll be delighted to take them. We have one other question related to the underlying technology of this. I know you touched a little bit on this. The question is about about the programming languages you're using. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about some of the underlying technology.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we use hyperautomation in the form of machine learning algorithms. So we have, data scientists on our staff and statisticians that work very deeply on this, that bring a wealth of experience. And we also work very closely with the various modules that make use of this on our cloud provider, which is AWS. So we're constantly evolving these to make sure that they reflect the latest and greatest out there. We listen closely to our customers really by industry, because we know that it's not just a one-size-fits-all solution. Waiting for a doctor is not the same as waiting to get your ticket scanned to go into a stadium or to buy a hot dog, right? So we tweaked it over time and optimized it by use cases that we've had across these industry verticals. And that has led to all these improvements. And of course, we have internal prioritizations and internal sprints, not for our clients, but for strategic reasons, how we optimize these algorithms on an ongoing basis, really on a weekly basis. So we take that very seriously and pride ourselves. Certainly when you look at the legacy incumbent players, that's how we really differentiate this, because the old tech stack, it's all manual inputs. First, you have to show up. You don't have the ability to see that visibility before you leave your home. But then it's incumbent on personnel to say, okay, well, the line looks like it's approximately a 10-minute wait, 10 to 15-minute wait. I'm going to put that into the system. Of course, that creates additional responsibilities and is subject to human error. So that's something that we realized certainly we had to bypass, and we've been able to bypass that in a pretty meaningful way.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I see now we don't have any further questions from the audience. Do you have any kind of final comments before we wrap up the session? Any kind of final comments you'd like to leave the audience with?
Charles, I'm sorry, can I interrupt? Because I've got one question I would like to ask before the wrap up. So Mike, you spoke about data and the importance of data security, absolutely right. But you must be getting a lot of data through these systems about human behavior, patterns of behavior, and so on. Is that something that your clients can tap into to start to, adjust their services to fit better with what they're their customers are needing, what they're doing, and so on.
Absolutely. So that is precisely accurate. The ability to see customer behavioral trends as it relates to waiting, and certainly so when we integrate this solution and have it communicate with the existing CRM systems, ERPs that the client may already have on site. We've also done integrations with existing calendar management and workforce management solutions as well. It paints a very compelling picture of the customers on an intimate basis that you can then use to tweak your targeted marketing in a curated form to service them in a much better way. So the ability to know, let's say you have 5 branches spread out over a 2-mile radius, and you assume that the eastmost branch is getting folks from within 5 blocks. But at the end, you see, well, actually, the folks are coming from, most of those folks are coming from an area which we don't currently service, right? More than 10 blocks away. They may be able to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, maybe it makes sense to open up a branch there based on the GPS of folks that are arriving. You'd also able to see, okay, different service members or different personnel are doing a superb job, very fast, in terms of efficiency and servicing times, whereas others who may be doing the same exact thing are taking double or triple the amount of time. The ability to recognize this and benchmark it against another, you can make efficiency adjustments on the fly, again, all of which can lead to increased revenue and decreased costs.
Yeah, that's incredible. It strikes me from an organizational perspective, that's as powerful as providing a fantastic customer service to your customers. The ability.
Yeah, one of our clients in Latin America calls it the holy grail of data. So
right,
that's a good emblematic quote, I think.
Fantastic, great, thank you. Thanks, Charles. Back to you.
Not a problem. Well, back perhaps to Mike, if you want to have any final comments you want to leave the audience with.
Oh, thanks, guys. I think we covered a great amount, and thanks, Tim, for the great questions, well thought out, and some great questions from the audience. So yeah, I mean, I think that the points have been made. We live in interesting times where this solution is ever more compelling and important, not only from a safety standpoint, but also from an efficiency standpoint. And consumer behaviors are changing and have changed for the long haul, where things like this are really necessary. You think about the early days of solutions like Google Maps or Waze, you didn't necessarily think that you needed it. It's probably a nice to have, but now it's such a ubiquitous solution that in many cases, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I would never dream of getting into a car without having that on the dashboard to know precisely the best way to go and how long it's going to take me to get there. The same thing is applicable here. And we've seen that with our user base. Once they get access to this, once the staff members start enabling this functionality, you start to see that trickle effect and the presence of network effect kick in quite dramatically. So from our standpoint, there's a huge social impact opportunity for us. And we're really just trying to spread the gospel and make it available to as many organizations, agencies, and people that could make as much use out of it as our current customers and end users have made already. So with that, I would like to thank Tim and Charles again for having me on this great webinar, and also really appreciate and are honored by the great partnership that both of our companies have had, and hopefully will continue to have for the foreseeable future.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And thank you also to everyone who joined us today. Thanks for the great presentation, Tim, for the great questions. We would love to continue this conversation. So please feel free to reach out to us about virtual queuing. If you have any follow-up questions, we would love to hear from you. We will be sharing a recording of the session within the next 24 hours. Plus, we also have an ebook and a white paper, which provide a bit more detail about what we've been speaking about today, and we'll be sharing that as part of the follow-up. But with that, I wish everyone a very pleasant rest of the day.